morning. So as I was saying, a very good afternoon to those of you who are joining from Asia with us. And hopefully you had a good and productive day. And to those of you who are joining from Europe, hopefully you had a very good start to the day and a very good morning. I have seen from the participant list that some of you have not renamed yourself correctly. Please put your first name, last name, and country as well, because in that way it's easy, very easy for our speaker to follow you and know who you are and where you are from. Today we are excited to begin this session and at the same time a bit of bittersweet feeling as well, because today is the end of learning with AI segment as well as the end of self-learning phase. So today is the last session of the whole self-learning phase, and the session today will focus on learning with AI, getting familiar with AI tools, part 2. So we are building up from the last session in today's session. And today we will mainly focus on personalized learning and assessment tools. First of all, the agenda that we have for today. So we have introduced the objectives and suggestions when it comes to learning with AI during last week's session. Today we will just repeat very briefly, but we will not be talking about them in detail. Please check out the recording from last week to learn more. However, the same slides that we have integrated in last week's session, we also have here. And finally, we are grateful that we have two great speakers today from Inspera, a platform that focuses on assessment, and from Noodle Factory, a platform that focuses on personalized learning. So as usual, we will have introductions to these platforms by the two speakers that we have, and then we will have question and answer session after each introduction. And in the end, we will have an overall question and answer session to close the content for today. And then, as usual, we will be introducing you to what's coming next. So if you could stay till the end of the session, that would be great, because from next week onwards, we begin a new phase. So I will be talking more about that at the end of this session. So first of all, when it comes to learning with AI, we have chosen two categories. So the first category that you have already had a session on was on authoring and collaboration tools by ClassIn and iSpring Solutions. And today we are having Inspera and Noodle Factory. And these education technology platforms are recommended to us by our partner, Singapore Education Network and EdTech Market Asia. And why do we have these sessions? Because as you know, for this project, we are focusing on both learning about AI and learning with AI. And there are a lot of education technology tools, including artificial intelligence in education tools. And some of them are free, some of them are not. And through this segment, our goal and hope to give you an exposure when it comes to what kind of tools exist out there that might be relevant for you to improve your teaching and learning practices. And I stress on this again, it's totally up to you whether you want to use these tools or not. Our goal is to give you awareness and the knowledge that you need, so that you can make an informed decision when it comes to using certain type of education technology tools. And we encourage you to really reflect again throughout this project to decide what kind of tools are relevant for you, inclusive and ethical at the same time. And how can you use these tools? Of course, there are two ways for school collaboration participants. When you are working in your team, you can use these tools if you find them relevant for your teamwork, and also integrate them in the design of your innovative teaching practices. Same for the faculty collaboration participants. You can use these tools if you find them relevant during your teamwork, when you are designing your project proposal. And when you are designing your project proposal, you can focus on these tools to either evaluate them or to kind of understand them better and design a research projects on that or an event. So what the project proposal that you will be working on falls under 4 categories that we have mentioned to you during your introduction. And finally, please, when you work on your innovative teaching practice and project proposal, decide whether you want to focus on learning about AI or learning with AI. If it's on learning with AI, decide what kind of tools you want to explore. And finally, as we mentioned before, pedagogy is always first. Pedagogy comes before technology, and reflect when you use education technology tools in the context of relevance, ethics, inclusion, and effectiveness. So now comes the most exciting part, our speakers for today. So we have Mr. King James Waldegrave from Inspera. He's head of Asia for Inspera. And we have Miss Yvonne So. She's the CEO and co-founder of Noodle Factory. Mr. King James Waldegrave, he's very passionate about assessment, and he has a decade-long experience in the field of digital education, innovation, and assessment. He will tell more about it in a moment. And Ms. Yvonne So, she believes that using education technology tools should be easy. That's why she named her platform Noodle Factory, and she'll tell you more about that as well. So first, let me invite Mr. Kim James Waldegrave from Inspera. Kim, the floor is yours. You can share your screen now.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
That's excellent. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you also in advance to everyone attending. Hope I can provide you with some value throughout this session. As you can see, we have an agenda in front of us, and I will try to do my very best not to draw over time, since we have a packed schedule. And I also very much look forward to Yvonne's presentation from Noodle Factory myself. I will give you a brief introduction to Inspera, and then I will give you an even briefer introduction to myself. But I will also dwell on why I am here today and why it potentially, I should have added potentially, is worth listening to what I have to say. And as Jyoti mentioned, I've been working in the digital assessment space for 10 years around the world and been part of founding the company that now is Inspera. And my perspective and experience can hopefully share light on some of the challenges that you're seeing now with the generative AI taking a much larger role in the day-to-day operations of any teaching and learning institution. Then I will tell you, sadly not show you, I will tell you about Inspera Originality. And Inspera Originality is our tool of the day. It's normally part of an ecosystem of assessment tools, but it focuses on originality, similarity, and how to detect AI-generated text. We will then give you some recommendations. Again, I hope they will be of value. Thank yous, and then I'm looking forward to your questions. So without further ado, Inspera. And I've been very fortunate to have a good relationship with Jyoti and Angie. So we know that this is not going to be a sales pitch. That is not what we're doing here today. But I do want you to understand a little bit about who we are. So Inspera was founded in Norway about 25 years ago, at first as a authoring tool for the big 5 publishers in the Scandinavian region, and then pivoted into digital assessment in 2012 to serve the Norwegian Ministry of Education with national standardized exams for K-12, primary and secondary school. We branched into higher education in about 2015, and in 2016, I joined the company and founded the Swedish branch of Inspera. After that, we've grown southwards from Scandinavia into Europe, all the way down to Asia. And today we're active globally, servicing higher education institutions, ministries of education, and of course, K-12 school districts, municipalities, and individual schools. Now, why am I here? So, long story short, I am not an academic, but I come from an academic family. I was raised by 2 teachers. I went into the commercial side of higher education, namely business school, which could constitute a bit of a controversy coming from an academic family, but I think my parents were happy enough that I decided to finally get a real job after trying to become a professional ice hockey player throughout my late teens with essentially no success. I stumbled into digital assessment. I used to work for a big publishing house in Norway, and then a company in Sweden was founded with venture capital from the Stockholm School of Economics, and that company was called DigiExam. So at DigiExam, the focus was solely on K-12. So I was at DigiExam for about 2 years, and then again, by chance, I stumbled into another opportunity within digital assessment, and that was Inspera. So at a trade show hosted by the Ministry of Education in Sweden, I met Inspera, which at the time was a company of about 20 people. I saw the technology. I took a bit of a risky chance, and I asked if I could franchise and license the company, the idea, the concept to Sweden. And after negotiations, that was granted. And I started my journey, which is about 8.5 years ago now. Throughout that 8.5 period of time, I've been part of implementing digital assessment solutions for ministries of education in Europe, in North America. I've worked with NRENs throughout Europe, North America, and now Asia, individual groups of higher education institutions and schools and school districts, and you name it. And I have seen all of the challenges. I've seen the very beginning, the cradle of digital assessment, where everything was about locking down the devices, installing some sort of software that would stop the students or pupils from accessing any other materials than the assessment itself. To the next stage, which was more interactive question types and a wider breadth of different assessment formats. That then became whatever we want to call the pandemic now, a very unfortunate series of events, but a blessing in disguise for digital assessment because it normalized the use of what it is that we do in a very, very short time frame. To now, the sort of fourth revolution within this tiny little edtech pool, which is AI, generative AI. We at Inspera, and I personally work with educators like yourselves every day, trying to understand the challenges that you see now, the challenges that you think you will meet in the future, but also how to embrace all the benefit that is out there in learning with and learning by AI. And what you'll see today with Inspira Originality is not necessarily how to learn with AI. It is more about how you can make sure that your students or pupils can learn with AI while you ensure that their work is original, that they are learning, not copying. Thank you. So, Inspira Originality has a somewhat cheesy tagline, pioneering originality in the world of AI, but that is simply what we do. Could have been a lot longer, could have been a lot shorter, but that is what we want to do. We want to be on the forefront of originality in the world of AI. And as you can understand and imagine, throughout the full journey of assessment, pardon me.
Kim, apologies for interrupting. Are you sharing your slides? Because we can't see it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Thank you for telling me now. That was not very good. Why isn't it sharing then? That was, I'll try again. Please do let me know if it works now.
Yes, it's working now.
Oh, okay. Well, all of this prepared. And I was going to make a joke of how poor of a designer I am as well. So sorry about that. Here we are. I just have to move a bit of these controls. So the mission for Inspira, not only originality, but the whole company, is to make education accessible. And this is for learners around the world that want to better themselves. And the important thing is essentially the last part of this credo. It's wherever they are based, regardless of their sex, race, age, or socioeconomic status. Education is the way to better your life, to build a life for you, for the future, and for future generations. While the learners are benefiting from the power of AI in their education, Inspera Originality will offer you detailed data and insight to support you in ensuring the academic integrity of their submissions, as I described earlier. So the competencies needed to use Inspera Originality, they're very few and they're simple. Essentially, the user interface will offer you reports, data, and insight at the click of a button. So there is no need for extensive training, long courses. It's essentially a turnkey solution that you can use tomorrow. Inspera Originality is not there to make decisions for you. Coming back to what you said, Jyoti, and the theme, one of the themes of this program, technology is there to support pedagogy, i.e., Inspera Originality is there to support you in your academic integrity decisions, not to make them for you. The lowest number of false positives without compromising on academic integrity is our modus operandi. And Inspera Originality is built with a design principle of privacy by design. And what that means, for those of you who are not into the IT side of design theory, is that all the data is kept sacred in the system. It is encrypted and protected so that access to it and identification of it only is available to the relevant users. And you decide who those are, not us. In the end, the technology is there to support you, not the other way around. Let's see, I'm having some issues scrolling. So, Inspera Originality is a software solution that you use on your device for three main purposes: advanced similarity checking, translation matching, and AI authorship analysis. The vision is to expand these reports into a comprehensive document, offering you full data and insight as to what sort of performance regarding these three metrics the submission from the student or pupil has gained. The product capabilities are quite simple. So we have originality on the one side, which is similarity, translations, and AI authorship. We also have access to content, and the access to content essentially means that we will give you access to sources to check these submissions against. These are proprietary sources, institutional sources, open access, and within a short time frame, also premium sources available for pay. We have integrations, either it's used as a standalone application. You can integrate through our APIs or directly through your LMS. That actually shouldn't say soon because that is in place. And it works with all the major LMSs, Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, D2L, Sakai. And of course, we offer you real-time analytics, role-based insights and statistics, again, to protect the data flow and ensuring privacy. The benefits are very simple as well. It's a holistic approach. It's not just checking one source, word for word, or a bag of words against another bag of words. It's a holistic approach to ensuring originality. You own the data. Back to the privacy by design and the data ownership. Institutions will have full access and control over the data. And you can enable students to remove their assignments at any time. The similarity insights, at least in our opinion, whether this is true or not, only the market can tell, is unmatched. Exact matches, possibly altered text, and in-text citations are available in the interactive reports online or offline. So for similarity, we have a three-pronged approach. We have similarity for one language checking against the same language. We have similarity for one language checking against a number of others. Neither of these have to be English. And we can also use similarity to check against AI-generated content and also predict whether this has been altered either fully or even generated again, by a large language model online. That, however, is available in English only. So the similarity checking gives us three options. As I said, either an exact match, where the classification and the score is anywhere between 80 to 100%. A possibly altered text, which gives you a lower classification and a score between 60 to 80%. And then citations. And this will give you the full breadth and the full capacity to check against more than just the one source. The exact match indicates a high degree of similarity. I think this is fairly understandable, so I will keep moving on through the slide deck to make sure we're on time. Possibly altered text will give you a moderate level of similarity between two sentences, and this is a little less clear unless you're into academic integrity. But it gives you the opportunity to uncover instances of text that have been rephrased while retaining the key concepts, and also finding poor paraphrasing instances. In-text citations are very simple. Seeing that most of our user base today is higher education, it is critical for us to be able to identify these. It supports the evaluators to identify properly cited text, and also ensuring that the content with similarities to existing sources is appropriately attributed, which is equally important. You can configure the solution to use all three of these or just the one. It is all up to you and your needs. Translation similarity detection, sorry, it keeps popping up admissions here. I have to just remove those. It's quite exciting indeed. And now we're looking at a variety of countries present here today. I myself am based in Malaysia, and I can see that there are a few Malaysians here, people from Brunei, from Romania, I caught someone from the UK as well. In higher education today, with the availability of large language models and what's coming, it is incredibly important to understand that text can be authored in the one language, then translated into the other, and then submitted. And in the traditional way of doing reference checking and similarity, this would have come through in a very high likelihood as original, and it is not. So this opportunity gives you the support to check cross languages, and neither has to be English, meaning that in a region like Asia, you could check between potentially, let's say, Bahasa Malay and Chinese. In Europe, why not check Spanish against French? And in the world where contract cheating, the opportunity makes the thief, this is a growing concern. See if we can click more. I'm not going to go into detail here again. AI detection is probably the most important part of today's presentation and where we should spend a little bit more time. So there is no denying that AI-generated text has a role to play in education, whether it's K-12, higher education, or vocational. The question is, what is it that we can do to make sure that the benefits the students, the learners reap are not compromising the academic integrity on our side as academics? Now, there are different ways of doing this, but one of the most effective ways is to try to keep up with AI detection and prediction. This can be used either for assessments, for group work, for assignments, actually even for exams, depending on the different question types used, of course. And what we do is that we check AI text probability on whole sentence and writing level and give you an AI probability score, okay? We also do a word prediction probability score, a sentence classification. And we also use NLP metrics to review the whole text, the writing style, and the outcome. This in turn will give you as reliable as possible of a score or understanding, together with insight as to why that is the case, whether the text has been written or partially produced by generative AI. And you can see here in the screenshot the theory behind it. So we're looking at a full sentence, but we're also looking word for word. And we're analyzing that against IP, which I unfortunately cannot share the full algorithm behind today, to identify whether it is likely or not. The next level, which is what we're working on currently, is how to attribute historical context and data, historical assessments or assignments, and check newly submitted work towards those together with the AI prediction algorithm. At the end of this, what you will get is a very thorough report. It will offer you data and insight, and I dare to say unparalleled because I'm fairly familiar with the market, on everything that you need to know, and probably more, to be able to get into this workflow that you see in front of you. And if talking about the AI capabilities was the most important thing today, this is by far the second most important thing. So again, these slides were made long before we knew we were going to participate here, but yet they rhyme with the main theme, which is that pedagogy leads technology, not the other way around. So the similarity will give you a submission-based workflow where the student's assignment, paper, or exam goes through a number of checks, where we check for metrics, we check for sources, and then we present that to you so that you, with your experience and understanding, also potentially even with your relationship and understanding of this particular student's behavior, can make a human decision. And the same goes for the AI-generated content prediction. You run your check, you look for the metrics, and then you make the decision. Note, nowhere in this workflow are we making a decision for you, because only you have the power, the education, the experience, and the know-how to make these decisions. What we do is guide you and give you the insight and the data. We have been asked for some evidence, and I'm happy to share this presentation so that you can click through these links. There have been a number of studies and reports written on the originality industry, and we're happy to say that we perform fairly well according to these studies. And one of the most important things in our, let's say, principle when it comes to originality is to ensure as low of a false positive rate as possible without compromising on the academic integrity of the submission. And what that means is that we don't want anyone to accuse an innocent student of plagiarism or of using AI when that is not the case. So not only do we have very, very low false positive rates while maintaining academic integrity measures, but we also have over 85% overall accuracy in AI text detection. I'm not going to go into the user roles, but essentially you have three different types of users. You have the administrator, you have the educator, and the student, with various capabilities, but all helping you fulfill your individual duties throughout the workflow. You will get role-based originality and integrity insights, and of course, analytics, either on individual level, on submission level, on student level, on institution level, maybe even program level. We will give you that opportunity, and then you do what you do best with that data. Quickly skip through this because we missed a little bit of time. As I mentioned before, we have three ways of looking at how to make this accessible to you and other institutions out there. So either it's a standalone solution, cloud-based, that you log on to with your credentials. You can use our APIs to build bespoke integrations to your infrastructure at the institution or at the school. Or we have a plug-and-play LTI 1.3 integration. Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard, and D2L, as I mentioned before. All you need to do here is set the LTI up, And then Inspera Originality will speak with your LMS, and it will give you the opportunity to move data between the two solutions, and hence create a much easier reporting workflow. A few more admissions here asking to come through. Now, I've been asked to give some recommendations. And I'd say that this doesn't only go for Inspera Originality, but in general, when it comes to education and AI and the use of AI within education. So first and foremost, trial and error, dare to fail. I come from the background of sports. So someone once said, you miss all the shots you don't take. Don't be afraid to fail. Dare to fail. Make sure you fail in the right setting and environments. Don't fail at a credit-bearing exam. Do everything you can to test, to pilot, to work with vendors, work with your students and stakeholders, to see the different use cases. Stress test those. Stress test your organization. Stress test the tools. Dare to fail, but make sure you're failing in the right setting and environment. 2, embrace the change. Many educators out there are very excited about AI. Some are not. And that's natural. We're humans after all. And change doesn't always sit well with us. As an animal, we're bound to comfort. We protect the status quo unless there is incentive to change. There is incentive to change now. You are educators, and I'm sure most of you are educators because you believe in the power of education. And that might sound corny, but I do. I think you do too. And with this change, we will be able to make education more accessible, more affordable also, by the way, to the world, to future generations. And AI can be such a key. AI is not there to replace you, your skills, or your competence. It will never be able to, or at least not as long as anyone here is alive. That I can assure you. But it can help you, and it can help the students. Make the best of it. Don't fight it. And then, Yoti, on the topic of a sort of controversial question. Blackstone's ratio is not something that everyone's familiar with. Does anyone know what this is without Googling? I'm happy for you to interrupt me and just tell me if you do. I'll take that as a no. So I didn't know what this was 3 years ago. Blackstone's ratio is essentially a legal term or a philosophy behind how to treat the ratio of innocent people versus guilty. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about false positives. I'm talking about it is more important to protect the innocent than to punish the guilty. It might sound controversial in certain parts of the world, but at least for us and for me, and as my recommendation, I want you to think about the importance of not accusing students of academic misconduct, but rather understanding the data first. Think about the data, analyze the data, gather the data before you make accusations. And even though it might be tempting, it might be worth taking a step back. And when you have enough, and it turns out that you are right in your suspicions, then of course you act. But remember Blackstone's ratio and put yourself in the shoes of those students. Nothing is worse than being falsely accused, even if it's such a harmless crime as using AI when you're in 7th grade, or for a very, very heinous crime as real plagiarism in your master's thesis. But please think about Blackstone's ratio. Thank you very much to everyone who's endured this, I think I'm on time, yeah, a minute over, presentation. I do apologize for not being able to give you a live demo. If anyone wants a live demonstration of Inspera Originality, or to test it even, we can figure that out. Thank you so much to Yoti Angie for arranging this. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And I very much look forward to hearing Yvonne. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kim. We have now a couple of questions from the participants already in the chat box. And I see that some are raising hands. May I invite Benny Pan from New Zealand to kick off the Q&A, because I saw that you have a very good question on the chat box. Benny, is that okay with you?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Benny.
Hi. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. Yeah, very amazing and good to see someone making progress. The reason I asked that question is in New Zealand, we have raised this big issue, and educators have a lot of debate. So we most teachers agree that we are gradually steering away from written assessment. But in a lot of settings, such as literacy and language learning, written assessment is almost compulsory to do. So most students don't know how to do prompt engineering, but those who do, or those who use other more advanced LLMs such as Anthropic, Opus, they tend to generate much more human-like text. So I wonder if your tools can detect those one too. Technically they call it AI human hybrid text. So human generate a text and ask the AI again to reprompt and make it a bit more human-like, or even purposely make some grammatical mistake.
Thank you, Benny. That's an excellent question. I just have to tell you, you don't have to confirm because I don't think it's this setting, but New Zealand is one of the markets we're very active in. And we're working with the Polytechnics of New Zealand. And they've just they've just told us now that this is the actual focus for them, steering away from written assessments. Much due to the challenges that we've identified here. And personally, I don't necessarily think that's right, but it's at least a reaction, which is better than to just retain the status quo.
Yeah.
Now, to answer your question, we're working with the Association of Polytechnics, all of them.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah. Now, human hybrid, it's an interesting concept, right? Because what you have today, pardon me, is a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
We are always behind the technology, right? So we have to play catch up. And let's just be very honest, everyone. The technology is likely always going to be one step ahead. Okay? So we need to learn how to think differently and how to use the technology differently. So not only do we have to, that's incorrect, you're the educators, but you should at least think about maybe redesigning the assessments, not necessarily removing the written component. I'm not saying that, but thinking about more creative ways of being able to measure knowledge and impact. 2, this is where the really interesting stuff is coming in, right? And what I'm going to tell you now is not unique to Inspera. Remember, this is not a sales effort. Most companies who are active in this space right now are going after one thing in common, and that is trying to be able to understand and match writing towards a student's historical concept. So if I were able to access historical submissions for you, Benny, from secondary school, and then you join my program when you go to Auckland Uni or AUT, it's very likely that I could use the technology that's available even out there today to see whether it is likely that you are the writer, the original writer, okay? So I'd say, 1, think about redesigning the assessments. Use what's available out there today to give you a guide, but redesign the assessments and then have a little bit of patience, because the pace of the technology right now and the acceleration of it is groundbreaking. The things will happen within 2024 that we weren't even able to imagine in 2022. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you, Kim. We see that Anna Grunland from Finland, she raised her hand. Anna, the floor is yours.
Moikka, Anna, or hello, or hi, hey.
Hey. I was thinking about the way you ended your speech, and you talked about the students being falsely accused of plagiarism. And I think that sometimes I teach English as a foreign language, and when the students write their papers and essays and all that, they use sources as well. And sometimes they tend to, they kind of copy their sources, but they don't realize that they copy. They think that they actually write an original text, but they don't. And when I challenge them and ask them directly, how have you worked? And I point out that these passages are copied, they don't understand. They seem to be very confused and surprised. And they don't know how to rephrase it in their own words. So I was thinking that the students should actually run their text through such a program to check what does it look like? How does it turn out actually? And when are they plagiarizing and when are they copying the text? What does it look like? So that leads me to the next question. How easy is it to use this Inspera, and how much does it cost? And would this be actually possible for a normal school?
Yeah. So I don't know the age. Well, thank you for a great question, by the way. And you've hit the head on the nail, because that is the exact use case that we encourage. In some countries that wouldn't even be on the map, Anna, but that's what we encourage. And in Finland, I certainly think it's appropriate. How old are your students?
I'm in upper secondary school, 16 to 18.
Yeah. So at that age, you're sort of at that almost adult type level, or at least you think you're an adult. Sometimes you are, most of the time you're not. I certainly wasn't. And the cheating or the misconduct is, as you say, sometimes not intentional. Again, not unique to Inspera, but most of the tools, or at least the serious vendors out there, they all have this capability to offer the student access to pre-submission, run their checks to make sure that they're in line with what is expected of them in the institution and through your policies. But it's also really important to talk about this, right? And I'm out in secondary schools all the time around the world. Secondary schools are not talking about plagiarism. We should be discussing that with students, explaining most of you will go on to tertiary education. That's why you're here, most of you. Some of you will go on to vocational and then, go out and work. But most of you will continue your studies. And plagiarism is a serious academic offense. But we're not talking about it. So one, talk to your students. Discuss this internally within the institution. How do we explain what plagiarism is? How does it work? Give them real-life examples. And I'm not necessarily telling you that you should threaten them and tell them this is a bigger issue than it is. But you should certainly make them understand what this means. And it's not only important now, it's even more important then. 5 years from now, when you're going for your master's, or 6 years when you're going for your master's, or 2 years in your case if they're 17, 18, when you're starting your undergraduate studies. This will be key for them to succeed, right? So yes, use the capability that the sort of serious vendors in this space will offer, which is that the students can pre-submit their work. But two, also talk to your students. The school should be raising this. And in terms of cost, I think, at least for us, our growth has shown that it is feasible financially for any institution to work with Inspera, not only the originality tools. And I think the other vendors like Turnitin, who I'm happy to name, they've shown that too, because it's considered an important part of the academic life.
Thank you.
Kiitos.
Thank you, Kim. I'm just looking at the time. We have to start with another presentation from Noodle Factory. I saw that Huisang, Stacy, and Isabel, you raised your hand. If I may kindly request you to post your question in the chat box, and I'll come back to you again during the overall question and answer session if we have time. So please, apologies that we can't, give you the opportunity now. Please type them in the chat box, and maybe there are some comments and questions for you, Kim. Some some of it you have already addressed. Maybe you can also have a look at the chat box and reply to them if that's okay.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you again. Now let's invite our next speaker from Noodle Factory, Miss Yvonne. So Yvonne, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jyoti, and thanks, Kim. That was a great presentation. I learned a lot. So I'm Yvonne, and I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Noodle Factory. So we're headquartered in Singapore. And prior to this, I've been in the tech industry for over 27 years. I was actually just telling someone it was over 24 years, and I realized very quickly that I had miscalculated. So it's been a long time. I actually started my career in big tech with companies like Dell, starting with a technical role, and then actually spending a lot of time in product development, which is my passion. And then in the last 15 years in education. Now you might be wondering, why would a noodle factory have something in common with AI? You know, when you saw the name Noodle Factory, and let alone education. So to shed some light, let's start with the origin of the name. Noodles tend to be curly, so kind of like what brain matters looks like. And noodles is sometimes a slang used for brains. So you might hear someone saying, let me noodle on this. So this is one of the inspirations behind the choice of our name, Noodle Factory. Another inspiration, which is part of our design ethos, and apart from the fact that our team really likes eating noodles, is that we believe that as a teacher, you're already very busy. And the last thing you need is new technology that comes in and takes up even more of your time to kind of figure out how to do it and to spend a lot of time setting it up. So one of the most important tenets of our platform is that it needs to be as instant as a cup of noodles. Because how long does it take to make a cup of noodles? Just a few minutes, right? 3 to 4 minutes. And everyone knows how to make it, regardless of your cooking experience. It's quick, easy, and can be done in just a few minutes. So we aim to deliver on that promise as well. Now, some background around what we're going to cover today. So one is I'm going to introduce you to Noodle Factory, but I'm also going to describe what were the objectives that drove us to develop this platform. I'm going to go into how it works, and during that time, I'm going to show a demo of how it works. And then I'll also link and describe it to how it helps personalize learning at scale. I'll share some of the evidence that we've collected with the different schools, and also, quite importantly, what are some of the ethics and inclusion considerations we need to take note of, and recommendations for next steps. So what is Noodle Factory? We are an AI-powered teaching assistant platform. In short, what we do is we enable educators like yourself to very effortlessly create AI tutors that can engage your students with tutoring, mentoring, knowledge checks, and feedback seamlessly integrated with your existing curated content and curriculum. So we started Noodle Factory back in 2018. So quite some years back, and definitely at that time, AI wasn't necessarily well understood, particularly in education. What led us to start Noodle Factory was that we were actually trying to solve a problem of our own at that time. So prior to Noodle Factory, my co-founder and I, we had started and were running a small training business for over 10 years. And what we did was develop corporate training programs. So we were focused on adult education. But one of the things that we believed in, and because of our tech backgrounds, is that we always incorporated a tech element, such as e-learning, mobile apps. But then we realized that actually the most important thing that we're trying to extend and, essentially enhance with technology is something that was very hard to solve, which was how do we scale ourselves as educators? Because that's really the hardest thing to scale. And yet, that's where a lot of times as a student, you benefit most when you have these great discussions with, your educator. So how do we scale that? Because we can't create more hours in a day. We can't kind of clone ourselves. And that's really what gave us the inspiration to look at building a platform that essentially was a chatbot, which is how it interacts with students. But instead of just any old chatbot, it can be very easily set up to have the knowledge that we have so that it can also engage the student when we're not around. And this is also actually kind of came up from a problem or observation that was framed by Benjamin Bloom back in the 80s, what he called the 2 sigma problem, which is that he found that students who had access to high quality one-on-one tutoring performed two standard deviations better than their peers, than the students who didn't get the high quality one-on-one tutoring. Hence the 2 sigma problem. But what is this problem? The problem is that this is not economically or logistically possible to provide every single student with one-on-one tutoring, certainly not in mass education. But perhaps this is something that now AI can help us with. And that is also one of the main goals behind the Noodle Factory platform. So this brings us to the key objectives that we had when we were building this platform. Now, our main goal primarily is to initially enable educators to scale their efforts. So as we know as well, there is a chronic shortage of teachers in many countries, and that results in overburdened educators. So quality education begins with having great teachers. So by supporting them, we aim to transform the unit economics of providing high quality education. And this will allow more students to access tutoring and have their individual needs met. Moreover, technology can often seem intimidating to some, but our mission is to make it accessible and straightforward by demystifying technology, making it as simple as, making a cup of noodles. We can ensure that it serves as a helpful tool rather than a barrier. So we believe in a practical approach to AI, and we use a principle of AI-assisted educator curated. And what Noodle Factory does is we provide a platform where educators can effortlessly create the AI tutors to engage students with structured tutoring, knowledge checks, and feedback, all within the guardrails of your curated content. So one way to really think of this is that the AI is there to help. This is an assistant for you who has all the knowledge you do and who is able to take on all the tasks that you don't have time to do. And on top of that, this super assistant of yours can even help you to track student progress, analytics, can speak over 100 different languages, and doesn't need sleep. So let's take a look at the platform to see how it works. So as a teacher, my starting point is always content that I already have. Every teacher has this. You might have lesson notes, textbooks, PowerPoint slides, you name it, right? So what I can do is when I start with this platform, the Noodle Factory platform doesn't come with content. So you can start to then build up the knowledge base of the platform. It's very easy to build up the knowledge base. It's simply a drag and drop kind of mechanism. So if you drag in any kind of text-based documents, that will work. And that will essentially be the first step to getting the knowledge base built up. So our AI algorithms will then get to work to index the content so that students can already start to have contextualized conversations with the content that you have put in. So on top of that, you can see here that I can also get my AI assistant to help suggest learning outcomes from all the materials that I have put in. But you'll notice that at every step of the way, the AI is showing me what it's doing. So I can edit it, I can save it if I want to. It's not just a black box to me. The AI is really just there to help. I do the, as an educator, I have the final say and I can make edits. I can also get the AI to come up with relevant tutoring questions, which I can review and edit as I need to. And in just a few minutes, essentially what you've seen, I've already created an AI tutor that my students can engage with. So right here, you see I'm editing, making some edits to the tutoring questions. It's great because it's like someone helping you to read through all the materials, pulling out the most important things, and you can then kind of vet through really quickly and add in additional materials if you need to as well. The other thing that it would do as well, and so you can kind of organize it by different modules, is that it'll also create these quizzes. So these aren't like assessments, summative assessments, but really what they serve as is knowledge checks. And sometimes students kind of use it as a way to learn, to see where they're at. It's very time consuming as a teacher to always create different assessments for your students to practice. But here again is the AI kind of suggesting all the different questions that you can create that you should have for your knowledge check for your students. It can even create multiple choice and the distractor answers as well. What this would do is at the end of it, when you're creating these assessments, because they're not really for, kind of assessing per se, it's just for knowledge checks, it will also then be able to give feedback to students based on how they respond to each of these knowledge checks, so that it can give them personalized feedback based on their level of knowledge. On top of that, you see here that after I've created all the different content, I can then also create structured tutoring pathways, and I can create different types of pathways for students that maybe have different levels of understanding of a subject as well. So all this can be tailored within the platform very easily in just a few minutes. So then what happens after all this is created? So in just a few minutes, I've already created some content, a subject with the tutoring flow. So let's look at the student's interface. So from the student's perspective, what they have access to is an AI tutor that's available 24/7. So it can guide them down learning pathways like this, where I clicked on a particular prompt or question that my teacher is prompting me to ask. I can even view the source information. So as a student, I know that where this answer is coming from, where's the textbook. If I need to know more, I can kind of search through it. So it's almost like a learning buddy sitting beside me. I can type in questions that I might have as well. So here I'm just typing in a question and it's giving me a response. But what if, maybe my preferred language is not in English? Here I'm typing the same question in Spanish. So even though the teaching material is in English, as a student, if I prefer to converse in a different language, or I can understand better in a different language, I can then choose my preferred language, ask the question, and you'll see that instantly the AI tutor detects that, hey, I'm speaking Spanish, so I'm going to switch to Spanish. And then it also prompts me, it then provides me a response in my preferred language. It doesn't change where the source content is from. So it's actually doing a translation of the source content and responding to the student's query. So what could be more personalized than really having a direct conversation with your tutor and, in your preferred language as well. And you can see the source material is still in English. Another thing that I could do is, maybe I need to know, I still can't understand this topic well. So I can ask as many questions as I like in any way I want. So I'm going to ask, can you explain to me what is the ANSI standard, as if I were a 6-year-old? And I don't have any fear, because I'm just speaking to the AI tutor. I can ask in any way I want. And you'll see that the AI tutor immediately kind of simplifies it. And the AI tutor is basically explaining it like it would to a 6-year-old about how it's like rules for drawing pictures of things. And, to be honest, this actually helped me a lot, because I didn't really understand this topic as well. And then, I can just close up the conversation, and, it's really like an AI tutor that as a student, I can come to anytime I need help, after the class or when I'm doing my homework. So I'd like to highlight, you've seen a very brief demo of how the AI assistant platform works, but I really like to highlight, how it revolutionizes personalized learning at scale. So I think one of the things that we really find it very valuable, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback from different types of institutions, is the multilingual support. So you've seen how our platform can break down language barriers by supporting multiple languages. We today support over 110 different languages. So this ensures that students from diverse linguistic backgrounds can really access high quality education without language being a barrier. Secondly, in terms of learning conversations. So the AI is engaging at the students as though they were a tutor in an interactive learning conversation. This isn't a passive lesson where, like the student just clicks through. They're actively involving the student, because the student is asking questions, the AI tutor is asking them back questions. So it makes the learning more engaging and effective, and it's also tailored to the pace of learning that the student needs. The next thing is in terms of knowledge checks and feedback. So I was saying that this isn't like a formative assessment, but a lot of times it is very helpful as a practice assessment, or just for the student and the teacher to be able to gauge where the student is at. So to ensure that students are on the right track, the AI will then suggest and administer these regular knowledge checks as the student is going about their tutoring on the platform. And based on their performance, I've given a small example here. We can go into more detail at the end if you want. But you'll see that, for the student was doing a kind of a short kind of exercise on why nutrition is important. And then based on the students' response, you can see here that, you know, the AI is giving feedback very specific to how the student has written out the response. So it's great because it also gives them suggested areas for improvement as well. As you can see, it says at the end, you know, to improve, you know, the student should focus on proofreading for spelling and error. So immediately as a student, I know, oh, you know, it's generally okay, but I'm having quite a lot of problems with spelling. So that's something that I need to take note of. The other thing as well is that, you know, it doesn't stop at feedback. It also suggests tutoring pathways. And these are tailored tutoring pathway that guides each student down a personalized journey that really adapts to their specific needs and their pace of learning. One thing that we've always believed in is an evidence-based approach. So since we started our platform and when we launched our very first version of our platform back in 2020, we started working with schools and in particular teachers to see how they were using the platform and what were their particular needs. And that is how we've actually continued to tune and improve our platform. So some of the key metrics that we always look at, and that's, you know, obviously important to a lot of teachers is, you know, student performance. That's obviously key. Student engagement and educator productivity. So this is one of the institutions that we've worked with from 2021. So we worked with them for over 2 years now. And you can see that, you know, it's shown really promising results. How we had collected this was collected over 9 months when they first started using the platform. And in the Institute of Technical Education, so they are a vocational school in Singapore, teaching primarily 16 to 18-year-olds. They have a fairly large class size. So most of the classes have at least 40 students, so a high student to teacher ratio. So you can imagine as a teacher, for one of these classes, it's almost impossible to give personalized attention to different students. But for this particular case, what we did was we implemented the platform to help alleviate some of the challenges, which was around, you know, being able to give feedback and spending enough time with different students. And we collected the evidence over a period of 9 months. So for student engagement, these statistics are directly collected from the platform. So we can see the analytics of how often a particular student logs in, how long they stay, how many questions they ask. So that's how we measure student engagement. Student performance as well is a combination of pre and post tests that delivered either from within the platform and also externally in their summative assessments with a control group. That's how they did it as well. And then for educator productivity, the stats are largely self-reported. Actually, one of the main problems that when they first approached us and they were very keen to kind of pilot the platform with us was that the educators were overworked. So they have to give out, or they were required to kind of give out a lot of practice assessments during the term. But every time they give out a practice assessment, they spend, you know, about 6 hours marking papers for these assessments just to enable the students to have the feedback. You know, and each paper was giving them like, you know, 6 hours of additional work, which a lot of times was actually weekends and nights. So that was how they actually started. We were actually targeting to solve that particular challenge. Then obviously, you know, there's a lot of added benefits to that. So they measured specifically around time savings with the marking process for you know, summative or practice assessments. And they found that most of them saved at least 50 to 75% of time savings. These are some of the student feedback that we had collected as well. And these are through surveys. So realistically, you know, especially for large class sizes, like 40:1, it's almost impossible for a teacher to spend a lot of one-on-one time with the students. But with the use of Noodle Factory, it doesn't mean that, you know, the teacher has, you know, nothing to do, but in fact, it frees up the teacher to be able to spend more quality time with the students. And this is the feedback that students have given with regards to using the platform. One of the things is that, you know, obviously they find that the knowledge checks are great because it helps them to understand. Also with certain institutions, you know, you might have a wide profile of students. And a lot of times students might be afraid to ask questions in front of their peers. But in this case, one of the students commented, I can ask the same question over and over again if I need to. And in that same token as well, another student had commented that, they can kind of practice the assessment over and over again without having to trouble their teacher to give feedback every time they practice it. So it's really tailors to each of their individual needs. So as we integrate AI into education, so obviously one of the important things is to address is ethics and inclusion. So our AI assistant platform is designed with these principles at its core, and it's something that we always take note of. So number one, of course, data privacy and security. So we prioritize that obviously with all the student data. And in fact, for our platform, we collect as minimal information as we need. So apart from like the student's email that might be required for login and the name and the class identification, there's nothing else that we really collect. And in fact, for some schools where, we're especially dealing with younger children, we don't even collect that. They have like anonymized data as well. So only the teachers know who they are. So one of the things that I think is important to consider as a teacher as well is that you should be mindful of what kind of data is being provided to a platform, any type of platform in fact, and to ensure that all these platforms that are being used follow the best practices for privacy. Secondly, in terms of bias mitigation. So AI bias is something that has come up when the AI is trained on data sets that may be biased in the first place. So it's important to be aware that this might exist. So one thing that we do to kind of mitigate this is that for us, our platform is really trained on, or is really focused on knowledge acquisition. So what we train the AI on is purely what you as a teacher would input into the platform. So as an institution, every institution has their own silo, and you put in the content and the AI will be just purely trained on your particular set of content. So having said that, this platform is secure in terms of the AI bias, but then obviously as a teacher, if you are the one putting in the content, then you should also, be mindful of putting in kind of diverse, inclusive kind of training data and content. Even then, it's always good to monitor the AI interactions to ensure fairness. And on our platform, you can interact and kind of see every single interaction from students, and then also to report the biases if you observe any. Accessibility. So inclusion means, making our platform accessible to all students, including those with disabilities. So our platform supports various accessibility features, and we're still continuing to improve that as well. So as a teacher, you should always ensure that whatever's being provided to your students are accessible by every single student and in accessible formats, whether it's like a JAWS reader or different types of formats that the student might need. And the next thing would be on cultural sensitivity. So, this obviously ties a lot to the languages. So our platform supports multiple languages. So this fosters an inclusive learning environment, regardless of, where the student's from or what language they prefer to speak. So this is also something that, as a teacher, because you're controlling the content, you should also be culturally aware when designing the content, providing the examples or any type of the material that is being input into the platform. And then finally, the ethical use of AI. So, the AI should be used as an assistant. So obviously, it's never meant to replace the teachers, and it shouldn't be used to replace the teachers. And, every student or every teacher is going to use AI, and what's important is to ensure that, let's say you're using the platform to give feedback to students more, to be able to scale that, to ensure that the feedback is being used to support their growth. So rather than for them to be able to just lift off whatever is being said by the AI. So it's meant to help their learning rather than like be a source for them to copy, for example. And also not just a way to monitor what students are doing on the platform. So by considering all these different ethical and inclusive practices is then when we can create an environment that really respects all students and harnesses the power of AI to really benefit every student and every teacher. So what do you need to effectively use our platform? Well, there's just only very few essential competencies because, like I mentioned at the start, it should be as simple as a cup of noodles. So first and foremost, just being able to navigate web applications. And on top of that, we try to remove any possible barriers as well. So we do provide 24/7 support with our learning success team and also onboarding sessions that you can really book at any time at your convenience. Obviously, it will be important to also know, like from a work standpoint, what are some of the repetitive tasks that you engage in that could be automated by AI. This could, involves like recognizing routine activities such as grading, providing feedback, creating knowledge checks. So these are tasks that AI can handle efficiently. And then finally, it's always crucial, even with like with an AI assistant, to provide clear instructions on what you want the AI to do. So for example, if you're using the AI to give feedback, it's important to ensure that you're providing clear instructions on how to give the feedback as well. So with that, what's next? So really one of the things is that we emphasize on meaningful deployment of AI in education and not just for the sake of technology. So when we work with different teachers to deploy our solution, we often look at a few qualifying factors. For example, how are classes delivered today? How does teaching and learning occur? Now, are there any particular pain points for the teachers that would pertain to workload or accuracy of tasks? And these are great examples of where AI can come in. Now, what challenges do students face for the course? Or are there like existing platforms and tools that are already existing? So instead of adding on to it, how can they be easily integrated? And most importantly, what would you consider a successful outcome from the use of the AI solution? So we've worked with a lot of schools across the world. So currently we are in about over 50 schools and across 13 different countries. And across higher education, K-12, and even adult learning, workplace learning as well. So we have quite a wide range of different use cases. Although it's an AI tutor, but it's sometimes used in different scenarios. We have like full online schools, we have like mixed hybrid schools, or we have like full classroom environments as well. So there's a lot of different use cases that we'd be happy to share if you have a particular use case. We also have actually a group of ambassadors who have been using our platform and who have different experiences and background that they'll be happy to engage with you as well if you wanted to learn more. And finally, so these are some resources for you. We are very happy to offer up a free trial for all the participants today. So if you scan this QR code, you can select the option to get a free institutional trial. So that will be a trial for your organization, so you can include your peers as well. At the same time, with this link, you can also download an AI handbook, which is really just tips on insights on what to consider when deploying AI in the classroom. So you can do that on this page. I'll give you a few minutes to capture that. And finally, that's it. Thank you for spending the time with me. Happy to talk more and hear some of the questions. So this is me. This is my email and our website. And we also have a book available that's written by my co-founder. And this is also not specific to our platform, but really just a field guide for educators on the use of generative AI. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. We have already quite a number of questions for you in the chat box. And thank you so much, Kim, for responding to questions addressed to you on Inspera. So may I ask our participants to raise their hand and ask some of these questions live, if possible? In the meantime, I will take a look at some of these questions. Well, a lot of them are about, I think some of them are a bit similar to, oh, Benny again. Hi, Benny. Okay, the floor is yours. You can ask questions. I will just read from the chat box.
Oh, well, thank you. Hey, so sorry for many questions. Actually 3 questions. I'll make it really quick. You said the training data. Do the educator upload the training data and the system does the fine tuning? Is that correct, or it has to be done properly before the educator use? Second question, do students' data, for example, interaction with the chatbot and answer the question, do those data get in to the training set as well? And sorry, last question. I'm a science teacher. We do a lot of drawing. Any future plan for multimodal, for example, image and video recognition? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, okay, I hope I got it. So the first one was around the training data. So yes, it can be unstructured. So you can put in any types of text-based documents today. And it even can be, for example, like a transcript. So we've tried putting in like a transcript of a video or an interview transcript. It's able to, once you put it in, it's really able to index it and respond to student questions from there.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's
So
one
like
of the key things.
like a rack system or something similar.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Wow.
And then your
Okay.
second question was around student training data. So no, the student, in fact, any of your data, whether it's content as well, because it's isolated within your institution, is never used to train any other large language model. There might be cases where, for example, you have assessment that is specific to your school, and you might have a way of grading and giving feedback. So you can give feedback to the AI and it will retrain the model, but it will only be for your institution as well.
Or for the institution, I see. Yeah,
Yes.
they've got their own data sets. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, and then your last question was around the multimodal.
Yeah.
So yes, we do have plans to do that. In fact, we already have the ability to extract images if they are tagged correctly. But definitely with the new large language models that are available, the new versions as well, we are looking quite actively at the video support as well.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny. There is a question in the chat box from Shimin Tan. She wants to know what is the difference between, or rather, what is the advantage of using Noodle Factory than to using ChatGPT?
So yes, ChatGPT might have a lot of these features, like you can drag in documents and all that, but that's with the premium feature. So even if you were to pay for the premium feature, just from a per user's pricing standpoint, Noodle Factory costs a lot less. Plus, ChatGPT is a lot of times one-to-one, correct? You can't get your students to do that. You can't kind of curate it for your student environment. You could if you spend a lot of time in development, but what we've done is we've already built up this platform, in fact, way before ChatGPT, with the vision of providing a comprehensive kind of AI tutoring platform.
Thank you. Another question, also from the chat, from Alwyn Chong, Brunei. Does Noodle Factory AI work with language analysis, identifying use of literary devices? You can respond to this question, Yvonne, and then we'll take one from the live participants, Rinku from India.
Okay. I'm sorry, can we clarify a little bit? What do you mean the identifying use of literary devices?
Alwyn, would you like to speak up? You can also type in the chat box and I will summarize it for Yvonne later. In the meantime, maybe Rinku, you can ask your question.
I'm from India, from West Bengal, and I teach in Bengali medium school. So many times I have to share videos as I am a physics teacher. So to teach different concepts of physics, many times I have to share video with my students. The videos which I get from the internet is mainly made in English. So my students are not so much so much do not interact with the English video. So can you suggest me any AI tools which can translate this English video into Bengali language? This will be very helpful for my students.
I know there's quite a lot of translation tools already available for both like videos as well as like text-based. I'm not sure about Bengali language specifically. I would need to check on that. In fact, for our platform, if you put in like the transcript, it could also do a translation back to English if the language is supported. But I will need to check on that and get back to you on that.
Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, all videos are not transcripted. Many videos are not transcripted. So in that case, is it possible to use AI for translation, for translating the video in any other language?
Yeah, I'm quite sure there are tools available for that for video specifically. But I think we would need to check which tools can support specifically the different Indian languages.
Okay, ma'am. It will be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rinku. Alwyn, I think you tried to spoke up earlier. Apologies, I didn't notice. Would you like to take the floor?
Oh, okay. Thank you. As I was asking, is it possible, let's say we upload a small section of a piece of literary writing, and can the AI detect use of metaphor, simile, juxtaposition, maybe other kind of literary devices? Is it possible to for AI to identify those things?
So one thing that what our platform does is it tries to limit it to what you put into the knowledge base. So for example, if you had some documentation around, different examples of how metaphors, simile, juxtapositions are used, then they could actually compare that and give the analytics based on that. But it is as much as what you put in, because the whole idea is that it's not specialized in any subject. So it's content agnostic. It's what you build inside the platform. So for example, any response that the AI tutor gives will be based on what's in the knowledge base.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a question from Theodora Kakuri from Cyprus. She wants to know, first of all, it's great that Noodle Factory, you were to Yvonne, you were focusing on pedagogy and it's in core. First question is it possible to integrate national curriculum standards, attainment target into the platform? And second question is Greek language supported for both user interface and content?
So I'll answer the second one first. It's straightforward. Yes, in short, it is supported. We actually are working with a Greek school currently. They're looking at doing a pilot. So, and we can support the Greek interface. So we can turn on different languages as needed. Is it possible to integrate to the national curriculum standards? So, as I mentioned, we do not put in, so we are content agnostic. So meaning when you get the platform, it's up to you to put in what you want, meaning that if you had like different curriculum standards, then that's what you could set up in the platform as well. But it doesn't come with, it won't integrate with anything external.
Thank you. There's another question from Andrew Lee Brunei. So you actually covered a little bit of it while answering other questions, but maybe you can summarize. In language learning context, how much or what type of content does Noodle require? For example, in terms of reading comprehension, it's a crucial skill and students often has trouble doing interface from text. How effective is Noodle Factory to question like, why did the writer subscribe it that way?
So that one is probably quite contents or like subject specific. So again, we have had English teachers use the platform, but they use it a lot more for like theory-based kind of things. So like, for example, if you wanted to check for grammar and all that, you can do that. Or if like, you can create like comprehension questions and responses from that. But if there is quite a lot of different inferences that might not be explicitly covered in the content that you put into the platform, then it wouldn't have a lot to base on. This probably wouldn't be the best fit.
Thank you.